The title of this talk today is Everything Must Change, which is actually the name of a song. I have been thinking about change really quite a lot over the last couple of months, so it isn't really just that I'm talking about it today. That just is a happenstance. And the first speaking time in January of a new year. But I've been thinking about it because the changes that I am feeling seem to require those of us who are in spiritual leadership and in this center and all of the things that we do to be creative in how we find avenues and ideas that enable all of us to handle what is going on, to think about what is happening, and maybe tools to respond to whatever is happening. That's the kind of thing I've been thinking about. We have a practitioner seminar at the end of this month, the last Saturday this month. It's an all-day affair that we've had a number of different times. And so the last couple of months, I've been thinking about change with that idea, because it's so important, because we are speaking to practitioners and ministers all over the Region 1 and beyond. It's not on Zooms. This is strictly an in-person event. And we plan and we think, but I'm putting into mind this idea of finding creative ways that we can offer tools to those who come to be and feel that they're better equipped to deal with whatever situation they and their own centers are in. So that's why my mind is there. Ernest Holmes said, change is always taking place within the changeless. And he's saying that, yes, change is happening all the time, but he's reminding us that the principles, God, Spirit, all of those things that are always true, do not change. And so all of the changes that are happening are subject to how we deal with them using those tools of the changeless. The song, Everything Must Change, begins that way. Everything must change. Nothing stays the same. The young become the old. The mysteries unfold, because that's the way of time. Nobody and no one goes unchanged. Maybe you know that song, and it begins, the soundtrack is playing in my head as I say the words, because I love this song. But it begins with in a minor key. Maybe you know enough about music to know about that, but you know it when you hear it. A minor key is more somber. It is darker, perhaps, if you want to say that. And so what happens in the song is that the composer segues from that minor into its relative major for the next part of the song, which is that rain falls from the sky. From the clouds, I think is the word. Rain falls from the clouds. Sunshine fills the sky. And bluebirds do fly. Because it's offering that idea within the changeless. There are things we can depend on, even though we're always changing. The flyer that was created for this class, it's really quite beautiful. Tracy McKinney does flyers. If you're on Instagram, you've already seen it. It's a beautiful reminder, and it's a beautiful rendition of this song. And so in the course of thinking about the change, and I was thinking about 2023, what occurred to me is what rhymes with 2023 is massive change. And of course, you're thinking, well, that doesn't rhyme. And I think that's the point. I think that's exactly the point. As I was thinking about all of this stuff, of course, I believe I attract to my own experience things that I can use. And I listened to a discussion I think it was, today is Wednesday, I think it was yesterday, it was just yesterday, on the radio when I was working around about, the topic really was how high school students are managing discussions about controversial things and how they're dealing with it. And it was occasioned because there is a letter or an essay by a teenager somewhere who was recounting in one of his classes where a male person in the class was emphatically saying something arrogant and sexist in his comments. And a female person of that class said to him, "You need to retract that. You need to get rid of that." And that's all she said. And no one else in the class said anything. On this discussion that I was listening to on the radio, there was a high school teacher that had been invited to offer different comments about what was going on. And what he said was that there was an opportunity there for the young woman, instead of reacting, and he said, instead of canceling the speaker, is the way he put it, to instead invite a discussion, ask a question, like, what do you mean when you say that? Or something else that would be open-ended and not canceling. And he said that didn't happen in the young man's essay. And he said in his own class, at Class S, he said that very often doesn't happen. And he said that I don't feel comfortable making the suggestion myself. And he said, if I'm being honest, it's because I don't need the blowback from that, from people who object, that I start getting comments on social media because I appear to be promoting something. He said, I lose my effectiveness as a teacher if I do that. And so the moderator of this said, well, maybe that's the way the students feel. And indeed, a parent wrote into or called in a comment that he said, I have 3 teenagers, and I've told every one of them, say nothing in class, because you do not want the blowback. You don't want to deal with the trauma of that. You don't want to do it, so say nothing. Well, I guess I was a little surprised at all of this, but maybe I shouldn't have been. And so after I heard that, it was later in the same day, I read, it was an essay from Time magazine, kind of an opening essay for a climate portion of their magazine. It's fairly recent magazine. And they were examining different climate change proposals. I mean, it's an elaborate thing. But in the opening essay, they made the comment that they had done surveys of a lot of different companies in this country. And they limited their results to 5 systems that they thought were did the most affecting with their work. I think it was financial, health, travel, cultural, and one other thing that I'm not thinking of. And in those areas, they limited it and started looking at different companies. And what they discovered, and they were surprised at how many of these companies were doing extraordinary things to combat climate change for their personal company. And they seem to be doing it under the radar, because They didn't want to attract the blowback, the criticism that would inevitably come. And of course, my first thought when I read that this is what they were doing is something that Harry Truman, I think, said, that isn't it amazing what you can do if you don't care who gets the credit? And so if these are positive things the company is doing, the effects are there regardless of whether they get credit. But when it comes to the culture, when it comes to all of us being unwilling to even breach or broach a discussion, what does that say about us? Are we afraid? It seems to me that fear, we just don't want to deal with the blowback, with the fallout, with the response. And that's a very interesting thing. I've read other things that talk about, there are a lot of things that each of us can do, and we can be creative about how we respond to something that is not necessarily something we like. Sometimes it is just speaking to one person. It's quiet stuff that this particular article or person was sharing. It is maybe writing a letter, maybe doing something supportive of someone who is doing good things. I think we're only limited by our own imagination because each of us is an expression of the one mind. And there are probably thousands, if not more, things that I personally can do. And I know that is true for everyone. And when I ask for that, when I put that out there, show me what to do, then it's going to just happen. It's just going to come to me. Things just come to me all the time, even though I'm not necessarily asking for it in that moment. Things just happen. I have an individual that I'm going to have a conversation with later today, and I wasn't even thinking about this man, and not in particular, but I was scheduling my day yesterday. I had a dental appointment. I had all these different things happening, and so I'm thinking about what time I could have the conversation with him if it was going to happen yesterday. I would just think about that. Well, I could, and that I could. And several times when I kind of had that conversation, what flew into my head was he has COVID. I didn't ask for that. I mean, I wasn't asking how he was. It wasn't anything like that. And he texted me late last night, and he commented and set up the time to talk today, and then he said, I tested positive for COVID this morning. There's one mind. And it's amazing how things come to us, which things come to us. And if we put out there what we really want, how we want things to be, and we don't tell God how to do this. We never do that. But we do know that we want peace and understanding. And that we want clarity about what is happening. And in the course of all of our lives, we are always open to Spirit. Always. And can we invite that in? And yet, a few days ago, I was getting a haircut. And I was getting a haircut from a man I've known close to 20 years. He's Vietnamese. And for the first time, and all of the time that I've known him, he started, well, ranting is the word I would use, about conditions in his neighborhood. And he was saying things that I actually found disturbing. And I didn't, this is a man who cuts my hair. And so I didn't really want to say anything. And so at some point, it was near the end of our conversation, he said something to me, and it's not so much what I said, because it wasn't objectionable, but I can recall the energy that I have. That's what I didn't like. I just said, I don't want to do that. And yet, it is my prayer every day that my words and my thoughts are guided, and yet, and in spite of that, there's this humanity of me that just plunges through. I probably treat every day. And I know one of the things I said this morning is, I consciously choose to keep the high watch on my thoughts that create my life, never allowing hidden beliefs to undermine my intention. And yet, even though I didn't say anything untoward, my intention was undermined. None of us are perfect in how we execute even our strongest intentions, but that doesn't mean that we stop doing that. We put things out there and we relax into spirit and allow that to work through us. And so it is the idea that we are victims of whatever is going on, and the massive change of 2023 does not mean that we can't have an absolutely wonderful 2024. But I do think it starts with setting our own personal intention. Maybe there are specific things we want to do, but mostly it's about what we tell ourselves and how we want to be in 2024. Someone said to me, we were talking about 2024, what rhymes, and she said, well, more rhymes with 2024. My second thought was, more of what, though? I want not more of 2023. I want more. I want more peace. I want more understanding. I want more clarity. And I want this to be a year in which things do even out for more people. I can only do that by having it even out for me. And so that is what I know. And so I'm choosing to close today with something that everyone knows. I put some copies out on the table. If you choose simply to take one home, even though I know you already know it and have heard of it, it's called the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think for me, that simply sums up how it can be. So I invite you to take one if you want one. There's some copies out there. I thank you so much for being here on the first service of 2024. It's an honor to stand on this platform. And so it is. And one of our noble volunteers, Miss Ruthie, is going to rise and pass the plate. And we are going to affirm the giving that we begin in 2024, as we say. Divine love consecrates my gift. It goes forth to heal, to bless, and to prosper all those who give and all those who receive. I rejoice in the sharing of my gift, and I release my gift with love. And so it is. Does anyone have a comment or a question even? You've already got this scoped out, and I'm so proud of you. Truly, I am. Ann Doherty has raised her hand. Isn't it nice when I know people's names? That's cool. Speak right into the phone, if you will, Ann. So
okay.
Microphone.
Okay.
So that I
We're
can
so
hear.
used to the phone. Let me get mine. Well, a couple of things came to me. One, at Founders on Sunday, our wonderful Spanish ministry planned an entertainment for us in our social hour, and it was so much fun. And it was 3 piñatas, and they had streamers coming out of them, and it was kind of like musical chairs. We would walk around, and when the music stopped, whoever was there would pull the string. And there was a string in there that would make the piñata open. But
Right.
if it didn't open when you pulled the string, you get to sit down. So that's the way it went. So the first one, there were 3 piñatas. The first one was the past, then there was the present, and then there was the future. I kind of missed the present somehow. I don't know. I was kind of busy that day, but anyway, it was great. Excuse me, the past, when the piñata opened, the balloons came out, and they were all blown up, and everybody got a balloon, and you got to pop it for whatever you want to get rid of for 2023, when there was a lot of noise there for a while, you know. And then the next one that I was aware of was for the future. And when the string was pulled and the balloons came out, they had words written on them. And I hadn't gotten a balloon yet. Somebody brought me a balloon, and it said Serenity. And so I thought that was kind of beautiful. And then one thing I wanted to say about your talk is something that I have been so aware of, and I think it's such a wonderful teaching, that when there is somebody says something that hits you wrong, to respond with a question. Because I see so much misunderstanding, people thinking they understand what the other person means, and they go all defensive, and you know, everything's all blown up. And I taught my kids that when I taught school. I said, ask questions, you know, don't assume you know, just, ooh, makes me mad. Well, ask, what did you mean by that? So I was happy that you brought that up. That was excellent. Okay.
As Beverly would remind me, be curious, not judgmental.
Thank you, Grant.
Thank you, Dan. David, behind you.
I have a friend in Vegas who is going through a lot of tests right now for Parkinson's. And I spoke to his roommate, Chris, this morning. I'm going there in January, later in January. Just prayer around his health and wholeness and their spirit to be free and more loving.
So you want the prayer really for yourself to be able to be, yes, okay.
Yeah. Also, I saw a great movie yesterday, The Color Purple. It's so full of joy. The ending is unbelievable. And I just thought I'd share that with you.
Thank you. It's wonderful. Thank you. So, this is for David. What I know is that whatever is going on around me, God is in the midst of all of that. No matter what it looks like, no matter what other people are experiencing, I can choose how I am going to be in that. There is this power that I can use that guides my words, guides my actions. And I use a touchstone I choose as to how I relate. And I know that whatever is going on, there is love in my heart. There's love in the way I speak. And there's love in my gestures and the way that I communicate in all ways. And that's truly all I need to know. I respond in the ways that are absolutely perfect for me. I allow myself to be candid, to be honest, but loving. And me in that space so that I meet whatever it is that is coming to me with this open-ended, open-hearted, and generous way to be David in that presence. I'm always grateful to know that in the panoply of things that are going on, the power and the presence sees me just as I am and is well pleased and knows that I am the beloved of God and I treat others the same. I allow it to be so through me in gratitude and say, and so it is. Anyone else? Beverly.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I woke up crabby. And everything I read up there, I was going in furthermore. Anyway, I've had quite a week, and I would like to share my story that matches Ann in a certain way. I was at the center in Palm Springs, and we had a burning of New Year's burning of letting things go, which you talked about. And mine was release. And so we had to sit quietly. What am I, huh? Is that working? Oh, there we go. Anyway, so releasing regret, and then we had to sit quietly and choose a stone and ask for guidance and what our quality is for the year. And what I got was wholeness. And that was so important, and I thought, let's just plagiarize, because the whole science of mind was on wholeness. And then I recalled that. So my prayer that I'm asking now, and I'm so glad that was my releasing and my word, is I saw my husband, Mr. John, and we've been praying for 2.5 years, and he has Alzheimer's. And I wasn't forewarned this time. I just had heard he's on oxygen. And when I got there, he was very much in bed, oxygen as needed, and now being fed. And I was so grateful I could sit there and hold his hand and know we were both in wholeness. And wholeness, and that included our human self too. And the part that was very, I can't even think of a word for this, that when I sat with him, it felt like we were holding hands, even though he wasn't holding back. So this wholeness, and when I got home, lots of things happened, and and it's just that serenity prayer, thank you, because I thought I could control. I forgot. I've been with the serenity prayer I was in Al-Anon since 1970. And sometimes I forget.
Don't we all?
Yeah. So a part of it for me this morning was I read my uplifting tracts, as my brother calls them, and I read our Science of Mind, and I read the daily prayer, the daily word, and I was given the blue book of the Advent. So it's just I need to remind myself who I am. But your talk was so helpful because it got me back on track. And my prayer that I'd really like is for John, that whatever the big picture is, that he's in safe hands. They love him so much where he is. And I am so grateful. And I'm ready to let go when he is. I guess that's what I want to talk about. Yeah. But wholeness, I love I got that word. Thank you.
What's interesting is that when the co-creation group met, as we were setting ideas about this new minister that we're attracting to our center, and Dr. Sharon will be here Sunday, and we'll read that vision statement that we created. But the word that we came up with as the group was wholeness. So maybe we could say that's the center's word, wholeness, and attracting that. Thank you so much. It's very touching, so thank you. So I invite everyone in here to just take a deep breath and allow the words to simply be in your heart. It's wonderful things that are being said. The past and the present and the future is actually all right now, they say. There is no difference. That there is the one thing going on. And so we just allow ourselves to be in this and to know that there's nothing new under the sun, and that all unfolds as it should. and we allow ourselves to be in that process consciously and being our best selves. And so, let us conclude this, and I invite you and remind you about spiritual discussion tomorrow and the labyrinth. It's wonderful things to engage in, to open your heart and your mind to whatever is going on, and participate and love and listen. Thank you all for being here.